Very good evening to each and every one of you. I thank you for having me. I want to thank you in advance for the tremendous support that I know you will give our candidate, Maria, on the 21st of February. I want, before you say anything else, to remind you that we are a Christian country in large measure, and that we have decided that this election that is taking place during the period of Lent must not be so conducted to cause Barbados to lose sight of its values. And that therefore, as leader of the Barbados Labour Party, I have required the party to suspend all of its political activities on Ash Wednesday as a mark of religious respect. There is to be no public meetings, there is to be no cartoons, there is to be no advertising by the Barbados Labour Party, because we really must respect the values of this country. And I'm asking the people and our supporters in this constituency to respect that decision. I want also tonight to acknowledge the tremendous confidence this constituency has reposed in the Barbados Labour Party throughout the years. It is the only constituency in Barbados that has. Hello? And I was not about to tell a lie, so I didn't know what to stop me from talking for. It is the only constituency in Barbados that has never flirted with the Democratic Labour Party. And in our most difficult days, 1986, you stood firmly with us and for us. And I must also say for the Barbados Labour Party that we have only and always sent candidates of the greatest caliber to represent you. So Henry Ford, a champion of champions. Mr. Dugan, who I really must thank for his service not just to this constituency, but for making this campaign so successful, because William Dugan is the deputy campaign manager for this campaign, and he has done so much for the Barbados Labour Party that I will always and ever be in his gratitude. I know we have brought a wonderful young lady who I'm sure will add to the luster of the tradition that this party has had in this constituency. I do not know Ms. DePisa. I do not know her. I am not going to say anything about her. I urge you not to say anything negative about her as well. I wish Henry was here. I wish Henry was here because among his tremendous other contributions to national development, Henry Ford will forever live in the history of Barbados as the greatest champion for women's rights and the dignity of our women that Barbados has ever produced. And tonight there is a matter concerning the way in which our women are being treated. A matter affecting the dignity of the women folk of this country that is so significant that it caused me to remember the words of Edmund Burke, that something has happened among us about which it is difficult to speak, but it's impossible to remain silent. You all are familiar with the issues in respect of CLICO. They concern 35,000 Barbadians who have made investments in CLICO, whether by way of insurance policies or the purchase of investment instruments called annuities. For 4 years, the well-being of those 35,000 Barbadians have been put on hold. Brundle Stewart, to his discredit, has chosen not to deal with the matter. First, because, as he says, Leroy Paris is his pal. And secondly, because, as he says, the report submitted about Clico has been stolen. And he chooses to behave like a stiff-necked man, and rather than deal with the well-being of 35,000, choose to ignore them on the flimsy grounds that their well-being is being addressed in a report which cannot defile his eyes because the report has been stolen. In the interval, people have had to put their life on pause. There are people who are pensioners who would have invested their pensions in the instruments issued by Clico and depended upon the interest paid monthly, who now do not know whether they are coming or going. And it is a serious matter, because if 35,000 people are now in a situation where they don't know if they're coming or going, they constitute such a large proportion of our economy and society that their inability now to spend is now a drag on the Barbados economy. And there can be no restoration of growth in Barbados unless the Clico matter is fixed. A lot of bad things have happened. Clico had a man called Leroy Paris, who was the closest thing to David Thompson. David Thompson served as Clico legal agent for a large number of years. And I remember that he even missed the debate to introduce the value-added tax into Barbados because he was abroad helping to sell Clico houses in what has become Crystal Heights. Every one of the actions taken by Clico in Barbados that has brought Clico to this sorry state in Barbados, David Thompson, as a lawyer, had a hand in and profited from. And rather than look after the well-being of 35,000 Barbadians, the Democratic Labour Party has chosen not to act, because if they have to act, it will require them having to pursue the assets of those who took Clico into this sorry state of affairs. They will have to affect Paris. And they will also have to carry out an investigation into what must be the most horrible financial transaction in the history of Barbados. Sometime in 2003, Leroy Paris had Clico sign an agreement to which David Thompson was a signatory, that he was to get a bonus of $10 million 5 years after the fact. Now, you ordinary people in St. Matthias Gap, if you get a bonus, you get it in the year involved for doing extraordinary work in the year involved. But 5 years in advance, they agreed to give this man a bonus of $10 million. And when Clico ran into trouble, they found a way of having David Thompson's company send an invoice to Clico for legal fees, collect $3.8 million for legal work they did not do, and then pass the $3.8 million to Paris. Now somebody has to answer to that, because that is a fraud. Thompson Associates collected money for work it did not do. And these things are wrong in Barbados. That if you steal a tin of corned beef in Barbados, you may have to answer to the courts, but you can find $3.8 million being dealt with in this way. And it goes on and on and on. Chris Sinclair, a young man, went to the last election driving a Suzuki, Suzuki too. But a Suzuki, he emerged from the campaign driving Leroy Paris's Jaguar. So they're all linked up together, not up together. And they will do anything to, I'm not going to say that, darling. This is a clean campaign. They will do anything to protect Paris. Now I have said, and I've come to St. Matthias Gap tonight to say, that the Barbados Labour Party will not, in this campaign, descend into the gutter nor the sewer. We are not going to use this campaign to vilify people, to abuse people, even our opponents. So you heard me start by saying that I do not know Mr. Pisa. I have nothing good nor bad to say about her. These platforms are to be used to deal with the people's business. You have a serious situation in this country. And in any instance, therefore, when something happens that leads to the horrible vilification of the character of a Barbadian, we have a duty on this platform to stop and bring it to your attention. Because Barbados needs its political institutions to focus on what needs to be done to stop our people from hurting. I cannot afford a situation where our politicians are using the privilege of being involved in public affairs to treat people in the way in which you are about to hear how Mrs. Christopher Sinclair treated, not me, because he can say anything about me. I've been in this for 28 years and it does not bother me. It's well with my soul. And whatever them say about me does not bother me, so don't feel sorry for me. But it is a very wrong thing for politicians to use public platforms to abuse the ordinary citizens of Barbados. And I'm not going to have it on the Labour Party platforms. And whenever a horrible case arises on the DLP platform, without losing sight of our need to continue to give you a message, I must stop if it is horrible enough and bring it to your attention. Now, Mr. Christopher Sinclair is the subject of this matter I speak to tonight. And Mr. Sinclair holds an office of Minister of Finance that has previously been held by Errol Barra, Tom Adams, Bernard St. John, Lloyd Erskine Sandiford, David Thompson, and Owen Arthur. It is a powerful office, and it's an office that when a person speaks, he speaks with the authority of the Ministry of Finance behind him. So that when the Minister of Finance speaks, it has to count for something. Now, Mr. Sinclair went on the platform and said that $83 million has to be found to satisfy the policyholders of CLICO. And where on earth is he going to get that money from? He says that. But he says that after David Thompson has said the people were getting about all the money. Fernand Sir has said they're getting about all the money. Delilah Ward has said they're getting about all the money. And he has previously said they're getting about all the money too. But suddenly now, it is $837 million. And where on earth are we going to get that money from to give back people? Now, there's a thing called a breach of legitimate expectations. And a lot of people in Barbados would have been led by David Thompson's statement, Chris Sinclair's statement, Francis Stewart's statement, to go even to the bank to borrow in the expectation that sometime they can get back their CLICO money. And to hear that they're not going to get back their money now is a serious matter. And therefore, the head of the people representing the policyholders in CLICO, Miss June Fowler, found it necessary to tell Sinclair, that it is not $837 million. Those are just the liabilities of CLICO. But to find out how much money you have to give back, you're going to take off the assets that CLICO held, 441. And she says that the number is, in fact, not 837, but more like 300 and something. And in that, she was generous, because, in fact, if she was only dealing with Barbados, she would know that the amount that CLICO have in Barbados, owing that it has its assets in Barbados at $281 million, and that the CLICO problem can be resolved in Barbados, not by the government finding $837 million if you're dealing only with Barbados, but by finding $77 million. And she felt the need to bring this to the attention of Mr. Sinclair. She's acting on behalf of 35,000 people. And you would think that he would stop and say, I thank you for the public service. No. And this is why I must speak in these terms, because, as I said, something has happened among us about which it is difficult to speak, but it is impossible to remain silent. This old Sinclair responded to June Fowler's statement, and I must read it. He said, to add insult to injury, out jumps Jack Rabbit, called June Fowler. He said, no, you know that I have studiously avoided responding to anything that she has said, because I noticed from her very first statement that she is clearly not the sharpest tool in the shed. And my mother always told me, avoid ignorance when you see it. And I have tried to not respond to her. Because when I was small, they used to have a cat hanging around my house. They used to call the cat Pussy. Pussy is a very ignorant little cat. And when you hear Miss Fowler speaking, she reminds me of Pussy. She is as ignorant as a bald-headed pussycat. You want me to repeat that? Because they say it is difficult. But the man referred to this woman who brings to his attention that he's given the public information that is wrong. Equate her with an ignorant cat that his mother had. And then dismiss a Barbadian citizen as a bald-headed pussycat. Look what our politics has come to. And tonight I have come to Christchurch West to say, this constituency was represented by a man who sought to lift up women to a position of dignity in this country. And champion the rights of women to hold serious positions in this country. Henry Ford, wherever you are, you got to talk about this. Because this is not the kind of Barbados that you sought to help create, where women could be treated with a position of dignity in this country. And I want to start simple. Earlier this piece, you are a woman. And nobody should treat you like this. And no one of your colleagues should treat another woman like this. And they need to hear you come out and condemn this. Because the women of Barbados deserve better than this. Friend Stewart, I need to hear you speaking about this as well. And you know, I sometimes hear people calling upon us to sign these codes of conducts. And I've said that really the Barbados Party don't have to sign any, because my candidates have to behave themselves. And that we will not tolerate anything like this in the Barbados Party. But I need to hear the Lord Bishop of Barbados and Father Blackett and others who often take this high moral ground and calling for politicians to behave themselves in public. to speak in the strongest possible terms in condemnation of this statement by Mr. Chris Sinclair that treat a dignified Barbadian just doing her job in a manner that I believe amounts to the purest form of political sewage that this country has ever had to put up with. This is sick. This is sicker than sick. This is lower than the gutter. And I believe that if the women in Christchurch West, as they know you do, have any self-respect, even the Dems who are women in Christchurch West will refuse to vote for the Democratic Labour Party if they stain on the character of Barbados and this ultimate insult against a Barbadian woman is allowed to stand without apology by the Democratic Labour Party. This becomes perhaps the most important issue of the day. And it cannot go so. Chris Sinclair likes to believe that he is Rush Limbaugh. You know Rush Limbaugh, the fat fella who likes to jump up and down. And you remember how a young lady went to give evidence before the American Congress, and the man, because she said things that he did not like, he called her a name that I would not be on this. It starts with S. We can do without the Rush Limbaughs in Barbados. And I've come tonight to say that this is justification why the Democratic Labour Party should not be returned to office. Because our people are being badly treated in many, many different ways. But this is going too far. And you know, Miss Fowler has a mother. Miss Fowler has daughters. I have daughters. You have daughters too. And we would not want anybody of our women folk to be treated like this. And perhaps we need to begin to remind Chris Sinclair what he should be talking about. Rather than walking about cursing people, what he should be talking about. And what he should be talking about is to tell you that because of the way and the time surrounding the calling of this election, Barbados could find itself in a constitutional crisis, facing what is called, you heard in America they call it having a fiscal cliff. Something has to be done by a particular time. And if it is not done, then you can have serious problems. Now, our constitution in Barbados requires that Parliament must give prior authorization to every penny that government spends at the start of the financial year. You can't spend unless Parliament has approved it. And if Parliament votes money in 1 year and it is not spent, it cannot be carried over, it lapses. And our financial year begins on the 1st of April. So the law requires that by the 1st of April, the amount that government intends to spend, called the estimates of expenditure, must be taken to Parliament, laid in Parliament for a week, and then debated by the House of Assembly. And after it's been debated by the House of Assembly, must go to the Senate, be debated, and all that must be done before the end of March. The estimates that will authorize expenditure beginning the 1st of April this year have not yet been taken to Parliament. And if they're not taken to Parliament in good time, things will happen. The government will not be able to pay its temporary staff. The government will not be able to pay its bills. Because, as it says, you can't spend in Barbados unless Parliament has approved it. So that you will notice that no other Prime Minister has ever sought to call an election so close to March. And as the Prime Minister, I felt that the latest you could possibly call an election was mid-January to give the public officers at least a whole month to finish the estimates so that the estimates could go to the House of Assembly the first week in March, stay on the order paper for a week, then be debated by the House of Assembly, then go to the Senate, so that you could never have a situation where people couldn't get pay in this country because we did not follow the Constitution. Now follow me. Frandel has called an election without the estimates having been approved by Parliament. He's called an election for the 21st of February. A Prime Minister will be put in place on the 22nd of February. And then the Prime Minister have to appoint a cabinet. That can take a number of days that could take you down to the end of February. Once that cabinet has been announced, it has to be appointed. And cabinet members have to be given their instruments of appointment. And then when they have, and that is sometime will take place perhaps in early March. And then when the cabinet has been put in place, the cabinet then has to convene Parliament, because there's right now no Parliament existing in Barbados. And Parliament has to be summoned in order for there to be a Speaker and other officers of Parliament for Parliament to function. And that is going to take some time, because there has to be a throne speech. And we done in March already, so that sometime in March Parliament may meet for the first time. And then it meets to constitute itself, and sometimes afterwards, if the estimates are ready, they will have to be brought to Parliament, stay on the order paper for a week, then be debated by the House of Assembly, and then go to the Senate. So you understand how tight it's going to be. Now here is this. If the next cabinet has ministries that don't now exist, all of the work that has been done to prepare estimates based upon the ministry that now exists will not matter. Because the Parliament cannot vote money for ministries that don't exist. And if the next cabinet has new ministries, then unless you have estimates that make provision for them, those new ministries cannot function. So don't panic. So that if a cabinet is appointed in late February or early March that has different portfolios than the one that is now coming to an end, you virtually have to start preparing the estimates from scratch. And that is the constitutional predicament that Frandel Stewart and Chris Sinclair has put this country in. Now, it takes at least 6 months to prepare estimates properly. We may have to contemplate doing those same estimates in 6 days. Now, here comes the crunch. And this is what Chris Sinclair should be walking about the country talking about, rather than talking about the country talking foolishness about Ms. Fowler. The Democratic Labour Party has something called a medium-term fiscal strategy. And that medium-term fiscal strategy commits the Democratic Labour Party to cutting expenditures by $150 million over the course of the next 2 years. They have already cut the hospital. They have already cut tourism. They have already cut the University of West Indies. The estimates that Chris Sinclair has and others have been preparing will be estimates that are based upon compliance with their medium-term strategy that will add to the cuts they have had to the drug service, UE, and whatever else. And in this election, the Democratic Labour Party should not be allowed to do that which it did the last time. The last time around, it asked you to vote for things that it knew it was never going to be able to do. That it asked you to vote for duty-free cars, interest-free mortgages, and a lot of foolishness. And it never leveled with you. If the Democratic Labour Party knows that it has been preparing public expenditures for next financial year based upon a program that will see government spending cut by $150 million over the course of the next 2 years, then this election should be about they're taking you into their confidence and tell you how the program prepared by Sinclair and the ministers of the Democratic Labour Party would affect you, the people of Barbados. This is what this campaign should be about, because they have been preparing those estimates now for a while. And this is important because we have a view of how Barbados should be run that is totally different from that of the Democratic Labour Party. And we are telling you what we think we will do. But you're not hearing from them what it is that they are committed to do and what they have been working upon. And that's why this onslaught on poor Miss Fowler is so wrong. That Chris Sinclair should not be talking about Miss Fowler. Last night in Caroline Car Park, I told you about what we're going to do with your taxes and taxes. Tonight I go down to St. Peter to talk not about Ainsley Ben, but how we can deal with the cost of living, because he's the minister responsible for the cost of living. And Chris Sinclair should be talking about government spending and giving you a broad idea and asking for a mandate to do what the DLP wants to do. Also, you will notice that we are now dealing once again in a counter-attacking way with this matter of privatization. The Barbara State Party has no interest in privatizing the transport board. But they are out there seeking to pin on us foolishness. I have had myself, Tyrone Barker, Clyde Maskell, and Anthony Wood have had to bring a case in the courts against Chris Sinclair for saying that the four of us professional economists had secret meetings at the University of West Indies and have prepared a plan to send home 10,000 people through privatization if we become the government. It is assault on our professional integrity, just as he has assaulted the womanhood of Miss Fowler. But the point I'm making to you is this. The Democratic Labour Party has this way of diverting you. In 1994, David Thompson would have said in advance that he knows what the IMF wants them to do, and they went on the platform and said that I had entered a secret deal with the International Monetary Fund to devalue the Barbados dollar. This time it is not devaluation. This time it is privatization. But Chris Sinclair was good enough to say, and you heard it, and I want to repeat it. He says that he had engaged discussions with the president of the Inter-American Development Bank, and that he has agreed to work with us and that to instruct his officials that the process of structural reform of statutory boards must begin in Barbados, and that the IDB, after his meeting with the president, not a little official, has going to provide resources, technical and otherwise, to begin the privatization of boards in Barbados. And he says we are going to begin with the National Housing Corporation, the Transport Board, and the Sanitation Authority. Now, there are some of you in this district who are living in national housing houses. And I believe that you need to be told what is the agreement that Chris Sinclair has entered into with the president of the Inter-American Development Bank to privatize the National Housing Corporation. How will it affect you? We need all of us to be told what will be involved in the privatization of the Sanitation Authority. Will the people of Hearts Gap and Christchurch in general now have to pay a private contractor to pick up your garbage? If this is what is being proposed, then come and tell the people so. Come and open up yourself to the people, Chris Sinclair, and ask for a mandate for the Barbadian people to have to pay private contractors to pick up their garbage. And if you have in fact agreed that the transport board must be privatized, because you have, then stop accusing the Barbados Labour Party of wanting to send home conductors and bus drivers, and tell the conductors, the bus drivers and other people working at the transport board, how many of them that you have already agreed should go home. And this is what this election should be about. And this is what really we are up against in the Barbados Labour Party. That we fight not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. And the power is in your hands on the 21st of February to bring deliverance. And they put it as high as that, not a change of government. When you are fighting against powers, principalities, and spiritual wickedness in high places, this is no longer just an ordinary election, but it is about the moral and spiritual deliverance of the people of Barbados. Good night, and God bless each and every one of you.